Hello everyone, this is Mrs. Boots, and today we're going to look at graphing rationals. Now this is our basic parent function for rationals, and if you'll notice, rational is fractional, right? So for rationals, I have a fraction every time. It's always going to be a fraction. I know you don't like them, but that's okay, because we can do it anyway. We still have A, H, and K. So the only difference for rationals is that A is on top instead of being out front. So A is still first, he's just on top instead of out front. Same thing, H is always telling us left or right. H is with the X, the difference is X is in the denominator now. That's what makes it rational. K is always at the end. K tells us if it goes up or down. Not a big deal. Okay, so let's look at this example. If you'll notice, what is the K value? Correct. -2. And which way is K going to move us? Very good. K is going to move us down, so we know we're moving down 2. All right. What is the H value? -4. Okay, because it's in the denominator with the X. And which way is H moving us? Yes, it is moving us to the right. So we're going to go right 4. And then do we have an A value? And the answer is no, we don't. There's just a 1 on top, so there's no A. There's no stretch, there's no compress, there's no reflection. Not a big deal. So we picked a really easy problem. So let's see if we can actually graph this. So the first thing I do is I'm going to graph my K. All right? So we said it moves down 2. So if I go down 2, there's going to be a horizontal asymptote. So at -2, I'm going to draw a nice dashed horizontal line. That's my horizontal asymptote. Then we said it moves right 4. So if I go to x equals 4, right 4, I'm going to draw another asymptote. This one is going to be vertical. Okay? So, at down 2, I have my horizontal asymptote, so that's at y equals -2. And at right 4, I have my vertical asymptote, that's going to be at x equals 4. Now you may ask, how do I know if it's x equals or y equals? Look at which axis it is going across. So at -2, it's going across the y-axis, that means it's y equals. At 4, it's crossing the x-axis. That means it's x equals. Okay? So these asymptotes, remember, they're actually invisible. That's why we draw them as dashed lines. But our curve is not going to cross them or touch them. So now we would look at the points immediately to the left and to the right of the vertical asymptote. So what point is on the left is 3. What point is on the right is 5. So I need to know what's happening at 3 and at 5. So I'm going to grab my calculator. Okay, if I don't actually put the fraction in, remember we have to make sure we put that entire denominator in parentheses, because if we don't put it in parentheses, then it's going to mess up our graph. So we're going to go to the table, and I'm going to look for x at 3, x is 3, and where x is 5. Now notice your asymptote shows up in the table as well. The asymptote shows up as an error because remember we can't have 0 in the denominator, and that's why we're going to have an asymptote there. Okay, so at 3, my y value is -3, so I'm going to come put a dot right here. And then at 5, my y value is -1. Okay? If I look at the graph, I can see what's happening. It looks like I got 2 curves that they're not touching in the middle, and they just kind of form 2 little loops. Okay? So we're going to come in and put in our 2 curves. Notice it's not going to cross or touch either asymptote, so it's making a little U shape or an L shape. Now the functions that we are doing, all of them are going to look like this. It's going to be what we call an odd function where one part's on the top and one part's on the bottom. So it's either going to be on the right, top right, and bottom left, or it's going to switch. So if the function was reflected, I would see the curve on the other two sides. Okay? That would be for reflected. This is our second example on graphing rationals. So in this particular example, we're given the graph. Now on the graph, we have all this different stuff that we can figure out and find. We're going to keep it simple. We're just going to find a few things, and then we're going to write our equation down at the bottom. All right? So, first the abbreviation. So I have va and ha. Okay? No, I'm not making up a language. I'm not speaking Klingon. Okay? So va stands for vertical asymptote. Ha stands for horizontal asymptote. So if you can't spell it or you can't say it, don't worry about it. It's just va and ha. Okay? So va, my vertical asymptote. So where do I have the vertical dashed line that I cannot cross or touch? Correct. It's at -2, and it's crossing the x-axis. So I would say x equals -2. Okay? Now, that tells me one of my values. That tells me I moved left or right. Okay? So which way did we go? Yes, we moved left 2. Okay, so that tells us the h value because we're moving left or right. We're moving the vertical asymptote left or right. Now ha, we got to find the horizontal dashed line. Here it is. And the value for the horizontal dashed line is at, very good, it's at +1. It's crossing which axis? The y-axis. So that makes it at y equals +1. Okay? So where it crosses the y-axis tells us the up and down. So it was shifted up 1. And that's my k value. So let's put a little note out here to the side. This is my h value. This is my k value. All right? So when I go to plug that into the equation, it makes it so much easier. All I have to know is those two things. I don't have to know any points. I just have to know the asymptotes. Now the tricky part is when you're looking at a calculator graph, you don't see those cute little dashed lines. So you kind of have to picture them in your head and kind of draw them in your mind. All right? So, h value, we said x equals -2 because it shifted to the left 2. Okay, hold on. What sign shifts it to the left 2? Correct. That would be a positive. So in my equation, I would put +2. Okay? And notice that's where the h goes. It's in the denominator with the x. So now we go to our horizontal asymptote, ha. That's my k value. And we said it's at +1. So I look at my graph. Was it shifted up 1? So that would be +1 in the position where k goes. So the last thing you need to check is for my a. Now, I'm keeping it easy for you. Okay, so a, for all of our examples, is either going to be +1 or -1. So I got to think back, okay? If it's positive, that means my curve is top right, bottom left, okay? Is that a positive? Do I have a positive? No, mine's switched. The left side is on the top. That means I have to put a negative sign right here. That means that my curve has been reflected. It's been flipped. The top part moved down here, and the bottom part that would have been over here moved up top. So it's flipped upside down, okay? So I'm only going to use a +1 or a -1. You don't have to stress about that. So for rationals, you still have your a, h, and k. It's a simple fraction. Remember, h is my vertical asymptote, and that tells us if we move left or right. My k is my horizontal asymptote. That tells me if I moved up or down. I can find them from the equation and graph them, or I can find them from the graph and put them on the equation. Either way.